The story begins with 4 kingdoms living along the coast. These 4 kingdoms believe in a prophecy that's supposed to happen, that someone will come and unite the 4 kingdoms. Because the 4 kingdoms are constantly at war with one another, and the person who's destined to unite them is supposed to end this war and make them all live in peace. Now we leave those 4 kingdoms and go to some people who are sailing in a boat in the middle of the water. Their leader is named Kiana. Kiana is very brave, bold, and courageous. There are a few kids were playing inside Kianu's house and came across a rope that belongs to him. That robe is worn by warriors, specifically those who are part of the Maui kingdom. One of the kids asks Kiana, saying, "Why?" And what did Kianu say? The kid asked him, "Why did you leave your high position in Maui and come live here?" So Kiana told him that he was extremely tired of war and just wanted to live in peace, which is why he left Maui and came to live here. After that, his wife Kaposi comes to him and says, "What's this? I can see you treat kids well. How about we have a child?" And she goes, "Actually, you know what? We're going to have a child. I'm not going to wait for your approval." And it's clear that he really wants to start a family with Kianu. At that moment, envoys from the kingdom of Maui arrive, sent personally by the king. For whom? For Kiana. They told him, "Listen, the king wants you right now." And they also said, "You've been here for 3 seasons, Kiana. That's more than enough." Kiana told them, "I'll come with you only because the king wants me. But don't expect anything else." Kianu takes his family and goes with the envoys to the kingdom of Maui. There he finds the king's son waiting for him. The king's son, named Sio. Billy is absolutely obsessed with Kiana. He sees him like an older brother. He told him, "Wow, remember the old days, Kiana, back when you commanded the army. No kingdom could stand against us in battle." Kiana said to Kapolei, "Don't get any ideas or think you can bring me back into the army. I'm not planning to return to any of that. I'm living my life freely now." While they were on their way to meet the king, they passed by an area where Maui's army was training. There was a guy among them who threw spears with such precision that not even a fly could escape. He could pin it with a spear anyway. The king's advisor, who, by the way, absolutely hates Kiana, decided to give him a fake warm welcome and tried to embarrass him. He said, "Hey, Kiana, why don't you show us a glimpse of your glory days?" and made him challenge that guy with the spears. Kiana immediately accepted the challenge without hesitation. The guys started throwing spears at Kiana, but not a single one hit him. On top of that, Kiana was catching the spears with his hands and stabbing them into the ground as he ran toward the guy until he reached him, grabbed him, broke both his arms, and then quickly gave him 2 or 3 slashes in the back. After that, like nothing happened. He casually went to greet the king. The king, whose name is Kaikili, welcomed him respectfully and also greeted Gianna's companions, whose names are not he and not McCain. Kiana then sits with the king and asks him, "What's the story?" "Your Majesty." The king tells him that he needs his help to defend his city. Kiana told him he wasn't interested and turned to leave. But the king said, "Wait, be careful. The prophecy has started to come true. And I want to tell you something, Kiana. You are the chosen one." "Why?" "Because you're incredibly skilled in war, yet you hate war. And most people love you deeply. So basically, my friend, you're the one who can unite the 4 kingdoms under your name." He added, "Besides, we've heard rumors that the kingdom of Oahu is planning to attack us." Kiana replied, "The king of Oahu isn't even a man of war. He's still a young guy." Achilles said, "This isn't coming from the king. It's the high priest behind it all. That man hates us and wants to wipe us out in any way possible. So please, Kiana, help us." Kiana said, "All right, let me think it over." And he walked away. Kiana went back to his people and told them everything the king had said he told them. Honestly, I'm not buying any of this. But his group seemed very convinced by the king's words, especially Kian, his wife, who clearly liked the idea of her husband being the chosen one. Kiana didn't take it to heart. He kept thinking about it rationally, weighing it in his mind. The next morning, the king came to visit him personally and took him out for a walk to talk as they walked. The king told Kiana, "This war is going to happen, no doubt. It might even be the war that unites our kingdoms, and Kiana, you need to be part of it because you're the best man alive when it comes to leading battles." Then he took him to a hut that had something strange inside. Kiana asked, "What's inside this hut, if you don't mind me asking?" The king said, "It's your father's remains." You see, Kiana, the high priest of Oahu, was trying to get to your father's remains so he could desecrate them. But thankfully, we managed to recover them before he got to them. Take them, Kiana, and give your father a proper burial at that moment. Kiana felt really touched by what the king did. He took his father's remains and brought them back to his people. And just like that, he threw them into the fire. And then they all start crying and mourning as if he had just died, and that night passes the next day. Kiana is standing on the shore when a prophetess named Tallulah approaches him. She's known for predicting future events, or at least parts of them. Kiana asks her, "Give me advice. Should I go to this war or not?" Tal tells him, "Hold your father's hands." Kiana replies, "What do you mean?" "Hold my father's hands. I don't get it. I just burned him yesterday." She says you'll understand it on your own, and then suddenly vanishes. So Kiana goes back to his people, and there his wife comes to speak with him. Kiana tells her what Tallulah said, but admits he doesn't understand any of it at that moment. Kulpo says, "Now I get it. Here, take this weapon. It belonged to your father. The warriors of Maui just brought it to me a little while ago. And since your father always held this weapon in his hands, Tyler probably meant that you should hold it in his place. Which means you need to take part in this war." That explanation spins Keanu's mind around, and he finally agrees to join the war alongside the king of Maui. He prepares himself, puts on his war robe again, and that strange, weird, intimidating helmet. Then he goes to meet King Kahekili. Kiana says, "Now listen carefully and open your ears wide. I want you to take your army to the shores of Ohio, but don't attack. Just hold your position. That way, the city of Oahu will send out their army to defend that moment. I'll enter from the east side and make my way to the temple. I'll grab their high priest and crush him and snap his neck. After that, I'll secure the young king. Then you can enter the city." Kahekili says, "Sounds perfect. Let's go." So Kiana and his group say goodbye to Hiki, since she's not a warrior, and they leave her behind in Maui. As for the rest, they all go with Kiana, even his wife, because she's a warrior. Kiana enters from the eastern side of Oahu, where he finds some warriors waiting for him. They try to resist him, but Kiana takes them all down and flattens them. And while the battle is still going on, Kiana spots Tallulah among the people, but this time she's dressed in all black. Her eyes are black, too, and her face shows clear fear and sorrow. Then she suddenly vanishes into thin air. Kiana immediately feels that something is wrong. So he warns his people and tells them, "Open your eyes. Something's not right." They keep moving forward and they run into another group trying to block their way, but it turns out these people are just farmers, not warriors. So Kiana refuses to harm them. At that exact moment, he hears the sound of Maui's war, Horn giving the command to attack the city. Kiana gets upset because he had told the king not to move from his position. But the king went ahead and entered the city anyway, and he does something very strange. He starts killing everyone in his path, old or young, anyone at all. He wipes them all out. Kapolei, his son, is in total shock at what his father is doing. His face clearly shows that he had no idea this was going to happen. His father had kept his true intentions hidden from him, and not only that, Akili then storms into the city's temple and also kills everyone inside, before setting the temple on fire. By the time Kiana arrives, Kahekili has already killed everyone. When Kiana sees the scene of all the corpses, he's deeply disturbed. And he's even more upset when he sees the king holding the young king of the city and killing him in cold blood. Kiana confronts him and says, "This isn't what we agreed on. You lied to me." Kahekili responds, "Listen, I'm forcing the prophecy to happen. It won't happen on its own, so I'm making it happen myself. I plan to invade all the kingdoms and bring them under my name. And then peace will finally come. God willing." Kiana doesn't like what he hears at all. He's furious and walks away from the king. At that moment, Kup Ali runs after him and tells him, "I swear I didn't know anything about what my father was planning." Kiana tells him whether you knew or not, the blood of these people is on your father's hands. And yours too. It's on all of us because we helped him, and then he walks away from him too. So at that moment, Kupal, he told his father's advisor to keep an eye on Kiana. And if you see him about to do anything suspicious, come tell me. Don't act on your own. Don't do anything. Now we cut back to Maui, specifically to a hidden cave in a remote area that no one knows about. There's a girl there named Kahumanu, her mother. She's the sister of King Kahekili. But Kahekili has no idea that Kahumanu even exists because this girl is the daughter of the former chief of the Kingdom of Ohio. Or rather, the one who used to rule Ohio. That chief is now dead and a new leader has taken his place anyway. The man who raised her comes to her and tells her that her uncle Akil did what he did in Oahu. So her presence here is now dangerous and she needs to be taken away to Ohio. He also tells her he's planning to marry her off to the new chief of Ohio. And keep in mind, Ohio is the sworn enemy of Maui, but Kahumanu isn't okay with any of this. She doesn't want to marry someone she's never even seen. She's extremely upset and leaves to be alone for a while back in Oahu. Huali storms in to confront his father and says, "What did you just do? Why didn't you tell me your plan from the beginning, Dad? What you did was wrong. You wiped out innocent people. We had no issues with them. Now you've created conflict, and the other kingdoms are definitely going to turn against us." His father says, "Don't worry, kid. I already told you I have a plan, and I'm going to carry it out." He then tells his son to send 2 men to bring Kiana to him because he wants to speak with him. The 2 men go to Kiana and take him away from his people to bring him to the king. But when the king arrives at the meeting place, he doesn't find Kiana. He only finds the 2 men lying dead. Kiana had already taken them out. The king gets furious and says to his son, "Listen, I want Kiana alive." There's some bone or something he's supposed to grind or sniff or rub. I'm not really sure, man. These tribal folks have all kinds of weird stuff going on, dear viewer. But it turns out that Kiana had already taken a boat, gathered his people and escaped, heading back to Maui. But the cunning royal advisor, who also happens to be the king's brother, already knew Kiana would try something like that. So he immediately had the boats prepared to chase after him. Kiana and his people were paddling fast in their canoe, trying to reach Maui. While they were rowing, they suddenly heard the sound of a bell ringing. They asked each other, "What's that sound?" And Kiana replied, "I don't know," because none of them actually knew what a bell even sounded like anyway. They didn't think much of it and just kept going until they finally arrived in Maui. Once they landed, they started calling out for Haki, but she didn't respond. Gianna said, "Listen, you all go look for her. I'll distract the king's men," because by that time, the king's men had already caught up with them as Kiana was walking around all cool and confident. One of the king's men suddenly appeared in front of him, so Kiana immediately took him down with incredible force and speed. But right before the guy died, he let out a loud scream which alerted the rest of the king's men. They all started chasing after Kiana, but suddenly he vanished like he'd evaporated into thin air. So the king's men were forced to split into 2 groups to set up an ambush for him. Meanwhile, back on the shores of the kingdom of Maui, some boats were approaching, carrying a group of merchants. It turns out these merchants had a large ship. And that's where the bell sound Kiana and his group heard had come from. But they never saw the ship. The merchants had come to the island to collect some fruit because they were starving and had no food left. Their captain gathered them all, pointed their rifles and said, "Listen, we're not here to get into a fight with the locals. We don't want to end up like Captain Jack. We're just going to grab some fruit and get out." Then we cut to Kahumanu. Her mother comes to her in the cave where she's staying and gives her some oil to put in her hair to clean it of lice and freshen her up for her new groom, and then leaps. But Kahumanu was deeply upset, so she went out for a walk along the shore. Suddenly, Tala appeared to her mom, who said, "I'm really upset, and I don't want to get married like this." Tala replied, "There's only one path to happiness in front of you." "Come on," he quickly said, "please take me there. I'm begging you." But Talia said, "You can't walk that path alone. Someone will come to you. That person will help you walk it. He'll come to you wherever you are." Suddenly, Tala was overcome with fear. Kahumanu asked, "What's wrong? What happened?" Tala answered, "The gods are terrified." Kahumanu was shocked. "What?" "The gods are terrified." "Of who exactly?" Tala said, "They're afraid of you because you Kahumanu are going to do something that will shatter the entire world." Meanwhile, Keanu's group finally finds Hiki, and she's completely fine. They quickly tell her everything that happened and say they'll wait right there until Kiana returns. On the other side, Kiana is still being chased by the king's men, and the king's advisor hits him in the head with a rock, throwing off his balance. Still, using his cleverness, skill, and experience, Gianna manages to escape and slips into a cave right by the shore. Inside the cave, there's water. So Kiana drinks and even rinses himself off a bit. Turns out that cave belongs to none other than Kahumanu. She arrives and sees him, and she tries to help him. But Kiana tells her, "Don't help me. If the king's men find out you helped me, they'll kill you." But Carmen, who says, "Don't worry, I've been running from the king's men my entire life anyway." Then she tends to his wounds, gives him first aid, and Kiana starts to feel better. She then asks him, "Why are the king's men chasing you?" Diana tells her everything, including how he came back here just to get Hiki and leave. Then he notices something. She has an old pistol. Kiana asks, "What's that?" "What's that strange device you have?" Kahumanu told him that's a weapon. It belonged to a guy named Captain Jack, who came here years ago and tried to invade the kingdom of Ohio. But the people of the kingdom managed to fight him and his men off, even though they had very advanced weapons. But you know how it is. Kiana numbers beat bravery in the end. Then she said, "Listen, since you're trying to escape from here, I've got a boat that's heading to Ohio. What do you think about you and your people coming with me?" Kiana said, "Sounds perfect. Let's go." On the other side, the merchants in the forest were picking fruit from the trees, but one of them had stepped off to the side to pee just as he finished. One of the king's men came out of nowhere and hit him over the head, knocking him out cold. At that same moment, Kiana and Kahumanus spot the merchants in the forest. One of the merchants raises his weapon at Kiana, ready to shoot Tiana, unaware of what that weapon really is, pulls out his knife. Thinking he can take him out easily, he shouts, "How dare you point your stick at me?" Of course, not realizing it's a gun. Thankfully, the merchant leader quickly steps in and orders his man to lower the rifle at that moment. Kiana throws his knife and takes out one of the king's men. Then he grabs Kahumanu and walks away calmly through the crowd. When he senses the king's men getting too close, he takes off his thong necklace and hands it to Kumano, telling her, "Give this to my wife so they know you're coming from me. Take them and leave. I'll stay back and distract the king's men and buy you some time." Meanwhile, all the merchants hurry to their boats, trying to leave the kingdom before they get caught up in any trouble. Kahumanu makes it to Gianna's group and gives the necklace to Cooper. Then she takes everyone to her boat so they can leave together as they're getting the boat ready. The merchant who had been knocked out earlier shows up and says, "Please let me come with you and help me get back to my ship." So Kahumanu takes him with her on the other side while Kiana is running from the king's men. He ends up cornered with nowhere to go, which forces him to face them head-on. At first, he easily takes down a good number of them, like it's nothing, but then more warriors show up and eventually overpower him. They capture Kiana and hold him down. Then the king's advisor shows up, ready to finish him off. But in a totally unexpected move, Kiana grabs the advisor and jumps with him off the ledge, and the two of them plunge into the water together. All of this happens right in front of Cowboy's eyes, so he simply turns to his men and says, "All right, you two jump in the water and bring Mickey on his body." But a little while later, Kiana wakes up and finds himself where? On the merchant ship. It turns out the merchants rescued him from the water and brought him aboard because he had saved them earlier from that royal soldier. But Tiana is in a wild, furious, and shaken state, and they're all trying to calm him down. They even say, "Here, take your weapons, relax. We're the ones who saved you." Kiana finally calms down, and as he looks out from the deck, he sees the ships sailing farther and farther away from the island of Maui.